With the assumption that the enemies you are fighting are within 10 yards of each other, every 5% area damage will increase your damage by 1% per enemy you are fighting above 1. This is true for both single target and area of effect spells. Area damage is a stat in Diablo 3 that lets some of the damage you deal to spill over to other enemies within 10 yards. For example, if you have 25% area damage and hit an enemy for 40 damage, the surrounding enemies will take 10 damage each. However, this area damage only has a 20% chance to occur. This means that the extra damage will only occur once every 5 attacks, and there is nothing you can do to change this. But you can increase the damage that will spill over to the other enemies. There is a formula to explain how much your damage output is increased from area damage. However, note that these calculations are based on the assumption that the enemies you are fighting fit within 10 yards of each other. At first glance, this formula might seem confusing, but let me break each part down for you. Y is the amount of area damage you have. For example, if you have 50% area damage, Y would be 0.5. X is the number of enemies you are fighting, assuming they all fit within 10 yards of each other. 0.2 is the chance for the area damage to occur, which is 20%. First we have Y, which is your area damage. We multiply it by x minus 1, which is the number of enemies that will get hit by the area damage. Minus 1 because the enemy that causes the area damage does not get hit by it. Then we multiply it by 0.2, or 20%, the chance for the damage to occur in the first place. The answer we get is the extra amount of damage that we will get from the area damage. Let's use the formula together with an easy to understand example. Let's say we are fighting 5 enemies who are all standing closely together. The attack we are using is an area of effect attack that hits all of the enemies for 10 damage each, for a total of 50 damage. With 20% chance to occur, or 1 in 5, the area damage is triggered on one of the enemies. With an area damage of 50%, the other 4 enemies will take 5 damage each, for a total of 20 damage. The total damage we get is 70, 50 from the original spell and 20 from the area damage. So in this case, the area damage gives us a damage increase of 40%. So let's run this scenario through our formula. 50% damage, 5 enemies, and a 20% chance to occur. This gives us a damage increase of 40%. Here's another example to cross-check the formula against. We are fighting 3 enemies and we do 20 area of effect attacks on them. This gives us a total of 60 hits, and with 20% chance to deal area damage, we should get 12 procs in total. In this example, we deal 30 damage per hit and have 20% area damage. We calculate the total damage from our normal hits, 30 damage on 3 enemies, and we attack 20 times. Our area damage is 20% of 30 damage, which is 6 damage. Each area damage proc will only hit 2 enemies, since the one who caused it does not get hit by it, and the area damage procs 12 times. To see the damage increase we get from area damage, we divide the area damage to the normal damage. In this case, we get 8%. Now we add the numbers into the formula. 20% area damage, 3 enemies, and we also get 8%. Here are 3 more examples of scenarios. As you can see, they all yield the same result as the formula. To understand how area damage is equally good for single target spells as it is for area of effect spells, let's run 2 examples next to each other. In both cases we use a spell that deals 10 damage, we have 50% area damage, and we are fighting against 5 enemies. The only difference being that the area of effect spell hits all of the enemies, while the single target spell only hits 1. Here is our damage without the area damage. The area of effect spell hits all of them, all the time, while the single target spell only hits one of them. The area of effect damage totals to 250, the single target totals to 50. With the area of effect spell hitting 5 enemies each time, one enemy should on average proc area damage on every attack. Each time it occurs, it will deal 5 damage to all enemies except the one who caused it. In the single target spell's case, we only hit one enemy, so the area damage will only occur on one of the attacks. So how much damage increase do we get from area damage? And as you can see, in both cases the damage is increased by 40% from area damage. And this is what we're after. We want to know how much our damage is increased from area damage. The reason area damage might seem to be so good for area of effect spells is because area of effect spells themselves are so good against several enemies. If you want to compare 20% elemental damage, assuming all your attacks use the same element, to 20% area damage, we can create this list to see how area damage performs against different numbers of enemies. From this list we can see that elemental damage wins over area damage all the way up until you can fight against 6 enemies within 10 yards of each other, in which case they are equal, and after that area damage becomes better. As you can see, with 20% area damage, our damage increase is 4% for each enemy after the first one. So if we divide these numbers by 4, we can get a nice rule of thumb. Every 5% area damage increases your damage by 1% per enemy you are fighting above 1. The next question is a little harder, but it is necessary to translate area damage into the real world instead of the theoretical one. On average, how many enemies do you fight within 10 yards of each other? This question has a lot of variables. Your playstyle, what abilities are you using, what packs are spawning, how long do you fight different types of packs. Try while farming to think, how many enemies is my area damage hitting right now? Try to figure out a nice average on how many enemies your area damage is affecting. Once you have an average that you think is accurate for you, you can enter that into the formula when you try to calculate how good the area damage stat is for you. For example, if your average is 4 enemies, your rule of thumb should look like this. Or to put it in words, for me 5% area damage is 3% more damage. I hope this video has made area damage a little easier for you to think about. Thank you for watching.